But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If Earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat Earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Eli, Refracted, Neil, One Deck, Len, Click OK, and a whole bunch of people in the Flipside Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
Hello there.
Yay!
Oh, well, it's very good to be here after a slightly heated Christian debate in the pre-show. Seems to be an ongoing theme, but fine. I have no objection to whatever you guys want to warm yourselves up with in the pre-show. As long as we have fun on the live show, that's the most important priority to me, as I'm sure you're well aware. How's it going in Discord? Tumbleweeds.
Going good.
Oh, thank you, Murphy. Good. Pleased to hear it. I've been slowly pulling the needle of addiction when it comes to, I call it addiction, but everyone likes paying their mortgage. And I've spent 12 months paying my second mortgage with microphone sales, which I've run out of. So I've got no more mics to arrive. Well, one that's still stuck in the post somewhere, but that'll come, I'm sure, in due course. But I haven't bought anything for about a week, and that's good. Other than I've got a whole bunch of mics behind me that I'm deciding to keep. That is to say, they're not up for sale, or may have been up for sale at some point but have been taken down. So what I've been doing, just to keep the addiction at bay, is make videos with those mics, because I can't remember if some of them, or not all of them, some of them have definitely been up for sale, but some of them may not have been had the privilege of being gone through on a mic video. So while I'm going to eventually obviously completely run out of things to make videos about with mics, because I was mainly doing it to sell them, I at least want to make sure that every mic that is in my possession's got a video about it. And I was saying in the pre-show, it's a bit like with Omi TV last year. So if you go back 12 months in my shorts videos, you'll see me talking to people, random strangers that is, on Omi TV about their religion of being on a ball. Now those videos obviously eventually come to a conclusion, and then there's no more of them because I haven't done any more. I've moved on to something else, which in this case is microphones. So once I run out of microphone videos, which will be once this top shelf of mics has all had a video made about it, all of the ones on the bottom shelf are finished. That's what I was just editing before we started this live stream. So over the next week, maybe 10 days, I'll, as I have been consistently doing for about a year, release a video a day with the title Nathan's Best Mics, which is all they are. The ones I've kept are the ones that are the very best of the best microphones that are available to purchase. And given that they've cost me nothing, like literally zero, I've been making profit from mics, might as well keep a good one in my possession if I come across it, and indeed make a video about it. So like I say, the last of the microphone videos will start to filter their way through February, while I hopefully clear out all of the last of the microphones for purchase on eBay. So I'm down to the last 10%. There's about 50 microphones left to sell, and overall I've sold about 500 microphones. About £15,000 worth I've purchased. Obviously not all at once. I've bought them, made a little bit of profit, and then bought another one, made a video about it, stuck it on eBay, and moved on to the next, and then repeated the process for a solid 12 months. But like with Omi videos, eventually all good things, because I'm sure you're all delighted about the Mike videos. Not. But all good things come to an end. You know, Omi videos are there for those of you who are like, I don't like your shorts videos about Mike, I want them about flat Earth. Then go and watch some of the Omi videos. And then you can watch me talking to random normal Joe on a what would you call it? A social media video website. I suppose that's the best accurate description I can give of what Omi TV was. And you can hear me, like I say, chatting to randos about how they've got a belief in a ball. Since then, it seems almost inappropriate to do such things with me saying people are entitled to their religion. Well, in the case of that series, I wasn't necessarily telling them that they got an incorrect religion, although I'm probably sure at some point I did. But moreover, that they got one at all. Most people were blissfully unaware, and still are unaware, that what they believe in this case heliocentrism, is a religion. You know, so that was most of the time my opener when I got someone on the hook, was to ask them if they were aware that they had a religion. And when they're like, no, I'm not a Catholic, I'm like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, you're a heliocentrist. Were you aware that you were in a one world religion? That was my opener. Lots of people had a horrible day when they talked to me on Omi. I'm pretty sure of that, because they were suddenly acutely aware that the science class had taught them a religious belief after they spoke to me, that is.
Who was that one guy you had an interaction with, and then he stayed on me, and like he hunted you back down? Did he have a name?
I can't remember. I know exactly who you mean, though. So I spoke to some guy, and it was like, are you aware you've got a religion? He's like, get lost, get out of it. I'm like, we have. You've got a heliocentric religion. He lasted about 35 seconds, and then he puts the phone down on me, right? As they do. You don't think anything much of it. You just carry on to the next one. And then John, who was on the panel in the background while I was making these videos, suddenly recognised that the same guy. He's like, finally, I've got you back. I'm like, oh yeah, who are you? He's like, it's definitely a ball. What are you talking about? Because I couldn't remember who he was. And then what I did was I went back through the video, found his original interaction, and edited it together with his more recent interaction, because there wasn't enough meat on the bone of the first time I'd interacted with him. You know, he'd just gone, get lost, you're a nutter. Which is fine, you know, I'm there to produce content, so him not wanting to play ball. But I think this is why you've brought it up, right? It had bitten him in such a way that he couldn't quite bear it. He instantly became an anti-flat earther on the spot, didn't he?
Yeah. It became McToon in a matter of moments.
Yeah. Went from being quite a nice, pleasant young man to being just a monster that wanted to tell me that I was, you know, worthy of having my kids taken off me. You know, I shouldn't laugh about it, but that is generally how people have been trained to react viciously when their belief in a ball is challenged. Now, me telling you, well, did you not know it was a religion? It's not a religion. Yeah, it's just based on measuring Earth flat. So you can't suggest to me that this violation of the measurements and axiomatic principles we measure Earth with is actually the case, and the ground's bending beneath our feet that we measure flat. It ain't.
Sounds like he ran off to do a little bit of research for 5 minutes and came back and said, yeah, it's definitely a ball. He probably Googled who measured the circumference of Earth, and Eratosthenes pops up measuring angles and linear distances across the ground surface level.
Yeah. I mean, how you spin this is nigh on impossible now. So the most recent version of trying to spin this into something coherent was McToon. So he's got, I think it was Vaxwax talking to him about how the linear distances are working, and my assumption was at the time when we first heard it was that Vaxwax had a couple of drinks and isn't the sharpest tool in the box at that particular moment. Therefore, when McToon's referencing flat Earth prerequisites that he knows, it was pretty obvious from watching the video that he knew the utilisation of distance in this particular back and forth was flat Earth only. He'd describe it and then go, on a flat Earth? Like, you're putting that qualifier in like there's a contrast to be had when you're talking about distance measurement. Now, there isn't one. There's only the flat Earth distance measurements that are applied in all circumstances by everybody who ever uses Earth measurements. But he had to phrase it in such a way that made it seem like, on a flat Earth, and it reminded me of the person who gave him his channel. That's Conspiracy Cats going, I'll give you a flat Earth for that, when talking about perspective. And you're like, what do you mean you'll give me a flat Earth for it? You're using it. You're the one making the example with it. Why would you give me a flat Earth for it? Because you can only measure Earth flat for perspective. And for McToon, you can only measure flat Earth for distance. So to suggest that you've got a contrasting point would be to suggest that when you use those distances, you say, well, on a flat Earth, when we use distance, you're like, you mean using distance? There's no disclaimer needed. But introducing the disclaimer makes it seem like there's a debate to be had about it. Now, in our normie coverage of the people who are measuring Earth flat, they don't make that disclaimer. It's a step too far for me to suggest that that's what they're doing. They're just measuring Earth. It ipso facto is flat, but no apologies are given when you just describe a distance across Earth's surface in miles or kilometres. No apologies are given. You don't disclaim that on a flat Earth with these distances, because why would you? They're just distances. But if you're on the anti-flat Earth vibe like Toon or Cats or Dan, you have to make apologies. Well, we don't only measure Earth flat. Like, yeah, you do. That's what you're using. You're using flat Earth prerequisites all day, every day. It's very amusing. And the more we highlight it to our audience, the more the people around me, not just John and myself, that's refracted curvature and I, are more and more relaxed with it. That is to say, us two. It's not just people going to accuse John of being my favourite, although he is. It's the fact that the more you realise how flat Earth requires to be measured, the more relaxed you are about your position as a flat earther, in the truest sense of the word. That is to say, you have a bit more of an apathetic attitude towards others who don't realise as you do. You know, roll your eyes. Because who cares whether or not you get it? You'll eventually come to a point where you have to measure Earth. Now, if you're in cognitive dissonance, you might disclaim to your audience, well, that's on a flat Earth that we're describing miles or kilometres. No, we just describe miles and kilometres, don't we? Normies don't have to apologise for how flat they treat Earth, do they? But anti-flat earthers do. Or, in the case of the Omi TV guy, a normie does in that instant that he suddenly realises he's got a brace against somebody who's telling him the reality of how Earth gets measured by insisting that you've got a spherical ball beneath your feet that you've measured flat. A tough old life being an anti-flat earther currently, I would say. The stress levels have got to be going up, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think you put it well when you use the term, you know, when has in the past, trying to lord over the people. I like the way you described that the other day, because we've all done it, haven't we? You know, you get a little bit irate yourself, thinking you need to listen to me about these flat Earth distance measurements. You know, you will understand, and going into and falling into some traps, you know, like that you don't need to go into. So I did like the way you explained that, Nathan. Maybe go over it again.
It's more derogatory than it seems. Seems like you've taken the positive aspects out of it, but it is far more self-deprecating than you might first perceive, which is to say that your own inadequacies and lack of faith, if it is a faith-based belief at the time of your ranting at someone else that they need to understand you and need to believe you. Now, I've said yesterday that that's you lording it over somebody, but really it's a telling demonstration of your lack of confidence in your own position when you feel a necessity to convert the next man to the way that you see things. Now, the way that you see things might be absolutely correct, but if you don't know that balls to bones, you're going to want to convince next man so they see it as you do. There's a natural tendency to want to align with those around you, form a consensus, that is. And
Depends on what you're talking about.
What do you mean? You don't know what I'm talking about?
If you're talking about heliocentrism, yeah. But if it's the scriptures and somebody's committing something that's blasphemy, you want to set them straight.
No, I'm talking about flat Earth measurements. When you're measuring a flat Earth and you know it beyond all doubt, then you feel less compelled to convert next man. I was saying, well, there's no debate. There is no debate. That's just a fact. Now, there's going to be people who try and compel us to debate with them moving forward. In which case you're like, didn't you say you didn't feel the need to debate people? And you're like, yeah, I run a show with the namesake Flat Earth debate, and there's going to be people who are compelled to challenge me on what I state. But the more time progresses, the less I feel compelled to correct them. That is to say, what difference does it make if my opponent gets it? I don't need his consensus. I don't need him to align with the way I see things. In fact, me seeing them in any way, shape or form makes no difference either. Me not knowing or knowing how flat Earth gets measured won't change how flat Earth gets measured, will it? Knowing that means you're less inclined to...
You're right. You're 100% right. And that's how I'm going to use that with Christianity too. You're 100% correct.
You kind of hijacking my point to get your point about Christianity, and it's kind of irritating, I've got to be honest.
What? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hold on a second. I'm agreeing with you 100%.
Only
you
just
didn't
Eli.
finish. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Eli. This is what it was like in the pre-show, by the way. We're all friends here. I'm sure we'll all get along by the time this is done. But go ahead, Eli.
It's interesting you said that because I read up to Numbers, and I think just the first 2 books, Genesis and Exodus, was enough for me to stop debating with people because they didn't know what they were talking about. I'm like, all I read was these 2 books. So it does, the more you know, the less you do want to debate, honestly. Because I used to talk about it all the time and I never read it. I read 2 books, mum's the word. Because I don't care if it's too great for me to, the ignorance is too great for me to do anything about. That's what you begin to realize. The chasm between what you know and what they're yapping about.
We're way off topic. Let's stick to factual data that we can experience.
Well, actually, as I'm going for a curry tonight, I had this conversation last time I was in the shop with Craig, specifically about you, Neil, which is to say that there's a jarring altercation that occurs in your own brain when you hear you talk about something you believe in wholeheartedly and with justification. Now, on occasions, for various different things, you'll apply a historic standard to your belief, but ultimately you understand and appreciate that it's a faith-based religion. But you'll express that directly after insisting that somebody who's on the Discord panel provide scientific evidence, something of the highest standard that can be, totally empirical by nature, or a measurement. Again, same, almost, of higher standards.
Yeah, but I have to do that.
Why?
What do you mean? Because if I'm talking about the scriptures, it's by faith. What do you mean, why?
It's not why would you need to do it, it's why would you do it in such a jarring manner where you flip between insistence on a standard, admittedly in a separate category, but when the audience hears you asking somebody for scientific evidence or a measurement and then expressing your belief in the same breath without pause, it's not that that's not justified. They have different standards attached, and I appreciate that. But a lot of the audience don't. They're like, whoa, wasn't he just literally insisting in the same breath that we have something that's beyond certitude, empirical by nature, and now he's talking about something that's based in faith?
Yeah, because that's it. Listen, the scriptures are totally different than anything else. I can't scientifically validate the scriptures.
Nobody's asking you to. I said it's a different standard. But I'm saying it's jarring when you go from one to the other.
Well, why did I go from one to the other? You'd have to tell me why. What was the conversation? I don't remember. But if it's bothering people, I won't do it then.
Well, you did it. You interrupted. It literally happened in the last 35 seconds. You interrupted me talking specifically about not being or being nonchalant or having a level of indifference when dealing with a fact of measurement. And you went, I will apply this standard to the Bible.
No. That's not what I freaking said.
I
said I will apply that how I deal with people. Because if I'm sure in something, maybe that's what it is. So I'm sure, why do I got to convert the next man? If he wants to go on believing Jesus in God, so be it.
Well, because there's a very real, equally jarring, because there's an absolute necessity to preach the gospel. And it completely contradicts my nonchalant attitude when appreciating a measurement that's going to be used regardless.
Maybe I should go to
My God. Chill out. I'm pointing out that it's jarring when I describe explicitly a nonchalant attitude revolving around an empirical set of axioms and measurements. And your interjection is about how, in a genuinely justifiable manner, you'd be perfectly within your rights to go preach the gospel. Nobody's going to stop you. And I would contrast that with saying you're worthy to go out at the same standard to preach the ball. Nobody's going to stop you. Everyone's entitled to their beliefs. But it's jarring when you're the one who's insisting on the standard. And at the moment, getting triggered about it and talking straight through everyone, me and Eli specifically, and then dropping because you don't like having the conversation. It's like, no, just listen. I'm not saying you've got anything incorrect in your assertions, and the standards you're applying are perfectly reasonable. It's just jarring when the example's being made about something specifically that's empirical, like measurement or scientific evidence, and your interjection is to say, I'll apply this standard in terms of how I don't convert people. It's like, well, why? Now you're putting an arse about face standard inappropriately to your Christianity. Some Christians might find that even more objectionable, but it's being done in between the discussion about empiricism and not being used to contrast it, like me saying, but you're entitled to your globe belief. I'm not contrasting the empiricism of measurements by saying, but you're entitled to believe in Jesus, because you'd be outraged, wouldn't you? So let's not contrast it or put the inclusion in literally the middle of the sentence in this case, because it's so jarring to the audience.
Well, it's one of the problems is that knowledge has two routes. There is a faith-based route to knowledge, and there is an experience-based route to knowledge. And it's easy to get them confused sometimes.
I feel like, see, when you experience something, you're already there at the knowledge, unless you're delusional or something. But faith-based kind of challenges you to navigate this world in a very personal way to seek a truth you're looking for. You know what I mean? I think that's the difference. With experience, you kind of just stumble.
About bully.
Or go ahead, sorry.
It's about it like science itself, right? You're not going to perform every experiment to show the cause of an effect. But if you accept an experiment and you don't know that the results validate the alternative because you've never done it, right? You're taking it on faith. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me just unpack that a little bit for the audience's benefit, right? What John's saying is, if you have not actually performed the reasoning and methodology and based in logic that it is, that's to say, validate, as he put it, your alternative hypothesis. If you haven't done that yourself, then you must take it on faith that the person who has formulated a valid scientific prediction has put it through the methodology. The methodology calls specifically for systematic experimentation. That's to say, one dude doing it's not enough. It must be repeatedly done. That's not repeated as in looking at the phenomena and blinking. It's repeating the experimental process to consistently validate the alternative hypothesis. But you may not have done that. Now, to say that you must, or it doesn't stand true, is stupid. So therefore, what John's point is, you can take it on trust. That's fine. It's due diligence to look at what is claimed to be an experiment and see if it does have a valid hypothesis and if it has had systematic experimentation applied. If it has, it's perfectly justified to put your faith in others who have done the test and the results that have consistently been shown to be true. Constant validation of the alternative hypothesis. That is perfectly reasonable to put your faith in. That's John's point, to break that down. But I want to validate what John said, but at the same time express my annoyance at Neil, because he's doing a gin. He's like, I don't want to hear this, la, la, la. And when you try and challenge anything he's saying, not that I disagree with any of his positioning specifically, it's just how he's phrasing it in the middle of the discussion that's jarring. I know it is, because it's been brought up to me by someone else who's on the panel. That would be click OK. And they have specifically noted how jarring it is to flip from one standard to the other. But Neil's disappeared. It's like gin when you're trying to explain what the scientific method is. No, I want the engineering to be science, so I'm going to disappear now while you're breaking it down for me. Just rude. Like, number one, your standard, apart from when you were like, well, I'll apply the standard of a nonchalant nature and indifference to something that, as far as I'm aware, the gospel suggests you should go out and preach them, not offer indifference. So Neil's flip-flopping in terms of his position that he takes is also jarring when he's now applying a standard that's reasonable when it comes to an acceptance of something that as is empirical by nature, the measurement of Earth's surface with horizontal distances in the forms of kilometres or miles, versus your faith-based requirement to go out and preach the gospel, and then suggest that, oh, no, I'll apply the indifference standard, if I could say it, to my Christianity. Like, number one, now we're cross-pollinating these two things: empiricism, scientific method, measurement, and belief. That is jarring. He's just not here to affirm that he understands what I'm trying to put across to him. You need a buffer between the two subjects. You need to tell the person who's listening, my audience in this case, to brace themselves that you're going to go from a standard that requires empiricism, or just as is, that's measurements, empirical by its definition. It's just an as is, what is description of how we measure things. No explanations, no justifications, no apologies are required when it comes to Earth measurements and their flatness. Even saying and their flatness is redundant, therefore you can have indifference towards it.
I would like to point out measurements are not empirical, they are factual. They're just, like you said, the cross-pollination thing. It's understandable. Like, it kind of gets a little semantic to pick at it too much, but it's the idea of falsification. You'll never falsify a measurement. That's not how that works. You can't falsify anything.
That's what it's implying with the word empiricism, that you have justified it by experimental means. You've ruled out nulls, things of that nature are what meet the definition of empiricism. Whereas I can't think of a word that has the same weight. I'm almost trying to steal valor from science when I apply those terms to measurements unnecessarily.
I agree with John, because everything you just said validated what he said.
Yeah, factual it is good enough, I think, because measurements are factual. Like, it doesn't have to be empirical to be factual.
Right. Yeah, it's not evidence either. It's kind of where we're going in terms of the rhetoric. There's a reason that the general normie doesn't have to apologise or explain the empirical nature of the measurement. It just is as is, factual in description. Now, it could be incorrect. That is to say, you might have the wrong number ascribed to the horizontal linear distance that you've described with miles. But that isn't in requirement of the valor stolen by many others when implying curved surfaces with the use of scientific terminology like empiricism. It's not necessary. It's just factual when it comes to measurements. Factually speaking, Earth is measured flat with miles. You don't have to like it. You don't have to apologise for it. You don't have to call it a flat Earth measurement. That is redundant. And also, simultaneously, back to the original point that brought us all to a head in this regard, when you're talking about juxtaposition between it being as is a factual measurement that's horizontal in nature and suggesting that there's a contrapositive or mirror of that flat-only measurement by saying, well, on a flat Earth, when I measure miles, you don't need to put that in, it's redundant. Like, I don't need to say, well, miles are a flat Earth measurement. Again, redundant. They're just miles. If you're going to describe more of what a mile is, you can describe them as being horizontal and linear. But again, it's kind of redundant. Who's off mute?
Oh, sorry.
Yes. So it's just redundant to suggest that you need to apologise for our flat Earth you measure with miles. A mile just is what it is.
Yeah, excuse me. I just listened to the show. I got to get back in here. Number one, Number one, that's not what I meant. And that's why I left, because nobody's comprehending what I'm saying. And maybe I should go back to bed when things like that start happening. I'm not going to continue to debate whether Jesus is God or not. Not stop preaching the scriptures. Number one.
Understand where Nathan
Number
comes
two,
from.
I know exactly who the person is that sits in the freaking panel and is upset when I bring up the things of the nature of God. Not just me. He's upset when it comes up naturally in any conversation. I'm not going to bring up his name, but everybody knows who he is, and I'm not going to pull a QE because the guy's very valuable to you. But don't pull that shit with me.
All right, Neil, okay, maybe I'll approach it in my own way. If I tell, let's talk about monogamous people, right? Let's just imagine that. If I tell my girl, hey, I love you, you're the only one, and this, that, and the third. And then my friend Joe is at the table and he says something about women, and immediately I say something that's like, oh, yeah, women with big booties and this, that, and the third. It's not, let's say I'm not wrong for how I feel, but saying it after what I just said to my girl is jarring. It's just, there's a particular...
You're going to have to send me an example because I don't know.
That was the example, Neil.
No, it was something I said, because I'm not remembering. So you're going to have to give me an example of how I offended somebody.
Nathan told you that it was jarring, and he gave you the whole spiel about how...
And he told me he said it. He didn't say what it was, what we were talking about, what was actually said. Give me a show so I could go listen back.
Yeah, I did.
Big man. Neil.
I gave you an example
Just
from...
Maybe in the after show.
Gave you
There
an
is no
example
particular
from
one
minutes
instance.
earlier.
Something we notice a lot is, and I only ever wonder how you feel about it, is when you move from arguing and proving it via empiricism, maths, whatever, and then fighting about something that you have no real argument for, it is faith-based. And I just wondered how that felt to be like that, to do that.
I don't see a problem with it. I don't see a problem with it. But if you do, you want...
Wait.
Who's got a problem with that?
I don't
Won't
like the
do
way
it.
he worded that. I can see how...
No one said there's a problem.
Wait. That's why...
Obviously, everybody has a fucking problem with it.
Stop swearing.
No, Neil, see, the problem with, golly, if I had a team of roughhousers, the last thing I would want is another witty person on the other side able to ruffle the feathers of one of my soldiers or lieutenants or whatever.
Don't pull that shit, Eli. Don't freaking take a shot at me like that. This is me.
He just took an underhand, in my opinion, and I don't even know. Look, first of all, to the other guy, I don't know if this is true or not, but what I got from what he was saying without saying it is he's saying, look, this stuff we're talking about is true. I know you believe in Jesus, but again, that stuff is just for the best way they can put it, faith. And they have a heavy emphasis on faith. So I feel where you're coming from, but can't you not let people pull the energy out of you when it's so obvious?
Well, that's the problem. The arguments are for beliefs. You have arguments about belief. You don't have arguments about facts, and you don't have arguments about empiricism.
Right. So if I can contrast it with a different standard so it's easier to digest. If we were in the middle of talking about measurements in a very as-it-is factual manner, and then suddenly I start leaning into how far I can go back in history to demonstrate that it is the case that this particular individual felt a particular way about a particular subject, because I can show you with primary source research how this goes all the way back to the 1800s, right when he was telling it to the next man who's written it down. So my standard's perfectly appropriate. But it's jarring to suddenly go from a measurement standard to a historic standard without any pause for the justification by you, the one doing it, to explain to the audience this is a different standard. So we're going from a measurement standard that is as is, it's a factual description of how something's measured, to I can show this with primary source research standards in a completely different category. Now, it's even more jarring when you go from mathematics or scientific empiricism to Christianity and belief and faith, literally with an interruption, Neil. So you interrupted me telling the audience about how I can be nonchalant about a measurement to talk about how you wanted to apply that to a religious standard. So to unpack it, if somebody came in and they want to pick apart what we're talking about in terms of the factual measurement or the empirical standard laid down by a scientific experimentation that's being discussed, they're not going to pick those things. They're going to try and convolute the discussion into a belief-based discussion because they have a bull belief that they want to interject into the discussion. And it seems far more reasonable if someone like yourself on the panel has offered up a convolution of these standards mid-discussion. And that's what you're doing.
When?
You interrupted me.
When you said that.
I just told you.
When
told you.
Can I freaking speak? Is it you talking about with Hawk that day when we were talking about chemtrails?
No,
because he
today.
started bringing God in, telling me to prove Jesus.
Today.
All right, today, what I said was, no. You took that wrong. I tried to explain what I meant by that. Maybe I'm not going to do that because I'm confident in it. If I can't convey it, why am I fighting with somebody trying to prove that Jesus is God? Let them find out for themselves. But if it's such an offense to do that, then I won't do it no more. Maybe it's about time I leave the show. I don't know what's going on today.
Not offensive to do that. You're not listening.
So it's time to leave flat Earth debate because
you're not listening to me. What I'm saying, Eli.
No, hold on. I got 2 words in based on what I heard.
Why is that bothering you? This is something said about me.
I just want to respond. That's why you said something. You stopped. I wanted to respond to your complete thought, and you fucking fucked me.
Stop swearing. Chill out. We're all friends here.
Right, everybody hates that about me. You know what, Nathan? I'm done. Forget it. Sorry, guys. I'm out. I don't need that shit.
They're just going to take offence with the standards that you applied. The offence comes when it's jarring because the interweaving of the 2 different standards are done literally today in an interruption to me suggesting how I behave as a result of having factual information like measurements. So to have the 2 interweave together is jarring. That's my point. I've said it about 3 times.
No, just screw me and leave because you're so deep in your feelings, you don't realize that you're hurting your friends. Because it's not like I didn't wait till you stopped talking to respond to your well thought out thought. But I got 4 words in and you ran over me just like you did when I first came into the show. What the hell is that? And then you're going to leave on me too? What the hell is that?
There is a reason you don't talk about religion and politics if you want to have a civil conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Good standard, much better than my contrasting a historic standard with a mathematical one. Yeah, history and politics. Why don't I go to that? Much better. No, religion and politics, that's what I meant.
Sorry if I sapped the faith from anybody asking how they deal with that.
It's perfectly reasonable to point out. On the inside, none of us are going to necessarily notice. We're just going to go, okay, now we're on a different standard then. And you can hold multiple thoughts in terms of multiple standards that are being discussed all at once. It's just not very clear to who's listening because they may not be aware that there's all these different standards.
I mean, I've always had that thought, and even you mentioned it a while ago with the Omi videos. You didn't realize you had a religion, and like we all know, a religion's a belief system, and I've always found it when we call the globe religion, but as if the religion, it's a belief system and it's, you've got no proof of this. And then, we've got religious people that we talk to and on the panel and everything like that. I never think the two things mix very well, to tell you the truth.
My problem is when people's emotions allow them to be hypocrites. And if Neil was here and I was to, aim that word at him, he would not let me get this out. But the fact of the matter is, like Nathan said, what's the difference between him and Jin? Now, I disagreed with you guys and I said, hey, you know what? It really depends on the intent of the person, which you could never effing know. So why talk about people who talk about conspiracies in general? It's not their fault that Flat Earth was lumped into that. Oh, screw that argument? Okay, fine. Well, Neil, when you tell me it's not Christians' fault that Flat Earth is wrapped into this kooky Bible mess, and that's why people don't believe in Flat Earth because all they see them is Bible thumpers, I'm gonna go, well, you shouldn't be doing that shit. Because that's what you told me in June last week. You're being a hypocrite.
Hypocritical, that's the wrong word, right? It's just when you convolute these different standards, it can be perceived as hypocritical.
No. It's the right word. He's saying he wants to do what he didn't want Jin to do last week. He now wants us to understand that he should be able to talk about his faith, and it doesn't really matter what the setting is. It's like he's only focused on, well, I'm talking about Flat Earth and I could talk about faith because I'm supposed to defend it. Doesn't Jin feel like he's supposed to defend something? He's doing the same thing.
No, I see what you mean. From that point of view, it is hypocritical. What I'm saying is it's not hypocritical to want to talk about a faith-based discussion or talk about a historic standard. As long as there's a pause and it's made clear to the audience that there's been a change of standards, that suddenly we've gone from measurement standards, facts in that regard, to a historic standard or a religious standard. That's perfectly acceptable. But it can be perceived to be hypocritical when we're trying to detach the Feast of Nonsense, belief-based discussions. Those have been intentionally interwoven in Flat Earth and religion, Christianity specifically, so that the contrast in the reality of the heliocentric religion isn't noticed. So we're trying to unweave these things, pull them apart from one another. Now, I can understand that the people who are around us, be it people who want to believe in chemtrails, 9/11, Sandy Hook, or religion, have all got very different standards that want to be interwoven with this discussion. Because if you can interweave them with this discussion, it makes it seem more palatable when there's a actual religion being substituted for these facts. So instead of the facts of an Earth measurement that's flat, we've got the religion of heliocentrism and a curved surface beneath your feet. And it seems more palatable if flat earthers are perceived to be the ones with religious beliefs in Christianity. The standards aren't paralleling each other, but they're interwoven in the discussion. Now, I want to unpick that tapestry because it's only there to justify the religion of heliocentrism. That's why Christians are slapped with the label of being flat earthers, so that there's a palatable, justifiable projection onto flat earthers, like they're the ones with the religion. We're not. We're the
now
ones
he's
with
bringing me
measurements.
back in because I got to stop watching the show because I keep hearing shit and I'm getting pissed again. I didn't bring it up today. That was in the pre-show. We started talking about it because something happened with that Virgin droid. I do not bring it up when we're debating and we're talking about measurements. You could have shown me where I did that.
You did it today.
Where I brought
You did it
Christianity
today.
into it.
You've just
no,
done it now.
It was brought up earlier today. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to explain it again why I said that today. That's not bringing up Christianity in the middle of a freaking debate. You better show me time, date, and when I did that.
Today, you interrupted me.
May I please?
That's not today, Nathan. I didn't bring up Christianity. I interrupted to say maybe that's the attitude I should take. That's the only reason I brought it up. And it was because we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, but that's the example, though, whether or not you like it. That is the example of you doing
No,
specifically.
show me the example that got somebody's balls twisted before this, Nathan.
So what I'm trying
You
to do
tell
is...
me I did it before. Flip back and forth. Show me where.
That's why it came up in discussion. My point is that we're trying to unweave.
Where did it
my
come
God.
up in discussion? Where
Third
did
attempt.
I do it? Show me freaking where, Craig.
My bad. I'll try for the fourth time. We're trying to unweave what is a religion that's substituting measurements. Heliocentrism's a religion. It's substituting itself for actual facts and measurements in this instance. Now, when there's an introduction of a different standard that's perfectly reasonable, in your case, Christianity, overlaid on top of the discussion about measurements, it seems reasonable that we are pointed at as though flat earthers have a religious belief in the subject of flat earth, when in reality it's a projection of our opponent's actual religious position when they believe in heliocentrism. Please can you mute? Please can you mute? It's the fifth time. Shut up. I heard you. You don't think you interrupted with your religious babble over the top of my talking about being nonchalant about measurements, and you want to ask me over and over again where you did it. You did it today. That's the fifth time I've tried to explain this.
Nathan.
Shut up.
Before today.
Stop talking while I'm talking. I'm trying to unpack and unweave this mysticism of heliocentrism that has superimposed itself on top of reality and measurements and empiricism and science and facts. So when someone comes along and expresses their religious belief in a curved-shaped earth, it seems like that's perfectly normal. And it's being normalised by Christians who interweave the discussion of Christianity into flat earth. That does not mean I do not like Christians. It does not mean I don't think we should discuss it. I'm saying that when you literally have it interrupting the discussion of how nonchalant I can behave when I recognise how factual the measurements are of flat earth, that is literally so devoid of any attachment to any religious statement that it can be distinguished from how we are poured scorn upon because we're suggested to have a religious belief in flat earth, when in the reality of the circumstances we befall ourselves with, our opponents are the ones who have a religious belief in heliocentrism. The measurements, I've got no belief attached. They shouldn't be in this. It shouldn't be in the same discussion, ever, unless you're pointing it out to contrast it. There is a religious belief when it comes to Earth measurements. It's heliocentrism. Why? Well, because they need to superimpose what is a religious belief on top of the reality of measurements. So let's detach these two. Now, it may not be enjoyable for you to hear that in the middle of a discussion about something empirical, you'll literally start talking about a completely different standard in the middle of my sentence sometimes. And then say, well, when have I done this? Right now. We're doing it right now. This is what we're doing now. This is nothing but us discussing how religious a standard can be justified whilst discussing how we feel about the measurements that are inconsequential to our beliefs, our feelings, whether or not we understand them or know them. None of these things make any difference to the facts of measurements. But yet we've got this idea that there's a religion of flat earth. There isn't. There's a religion of ball. We need to separate these things. There's just flat earth measurements. They are facts. What you, separate to those measurements, believe after you've measured it is something entirely separate with a different standard. You can believe in a different category whatever you like. It just has nothing to do with the way Earth gets measured. It is flat. That's a contrast as opposed to an inclusion of a different standard, Neil. I'm done.
Pardon me.
Finally,
Pardon
you're
me.
done. No. Hold on. That's it. We're going to say this again, man. Today, I did it to make a point. You got to show me where I did this in the past, where I'm talking about the measurements, and all of a sudden I start declaring Jesus. Are you freaking kidding me? Maybe
Hold on,
Church
Neil.
Daddy's been
understand
bringing
your
religion into
position.
it, but
Please.
you got to show me where.
Please calm down, Neil. I think I can articulate it without getting
Calm
upset.
down my ass. You're fucking pissing me off.
Chill
You
out.
told me I'm bringing up Jesus in the middle of talking about measurements. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on it.
I'm defending you, Neil. I'm going to defend you. You got to have faith in me, please. Neil is not disagreeing with you, Nathan, about interweaving the two subjects. But he is saying that for him to have been attacked in the past as if he's done that before, he would like some evidence of that. because he is, and from what I can tell as well, it seems as if people are using the fact that you can shut down the argument against him now.
Exactly, John. I want to see it. Today I did that because we were talking about it earlier, and it's like, you know what? He's got a point there. I'm established in measurements. I could relax, and that's the way I feel about the other thing. Well, you better show me somewhere where I did in the past where we're talking about measurements, and then all of a sudden I'm talking about my faith in Jesus during a live show. You show me where.
I don't need to. It's not relevant. What's relevant is the detachment of the religion of heliocentrism versus the facts of Earth measurement. Those are in different categories. But it is a fact that Christians specifically are poured scorn upon based on the fact that they are utilising a religious belief in flat Earth so that it can be put up for discussion and debate. By contrast, it's just no one mentions that heliocentrism's a religious belief, but if you can make what is a fact in measurement a Christian's belief in a flat Earth, then you can have the discussion. So there's positioning that I want to unweave. I want people to recognise the distinction between the two, and having the introduction of a Christian or a religious or any history-based or any differing standard from what Earth is actually dealt with as justifies anybody with a religious belief in a ball, contrasting it with the Christian's belief in a flat Earth, which it isn't.
Well, I think me and Neil both agree with everything that you just said. But Neil, I say table this and we'll talk about it in a little bit. It's not fair to the audience to seem like you're taking an opposing position to what Nathan just stated.
Let's just ask him it as a question. Do you agree, Neil, that there is a justification for making flat Earth into a religious viewpoint because the contrapositive position of ball belief is a religious belief? Therefore, to have the discussion, it must be positioned such that flat Earth, rather than being a fact in measurement, is actually a religious belief. Do you agree?
Of course I agree. Why would I not agree with that?
Because it's a complicated unpacking of a very complicated circumstance that we've only spent 10 years trying to figure out. Oh my God.
Ask him
Yeah,
again.
get out Eli now.
No, I don't think what he's saying is, do you think it's okay for people to, because we know that, man, it's the word religion, because I would like, now we got to go.
I'm not in a religion. That's another thing.
Well, there you go. So I know you don't view it that way. That being said, when people try to tack on flat Earth and religion, I know you don't agree with that, right?
Of course not. It's a fact.
There you go.
Go ahead.
All right, now that we've assessed that, then we can move on.
I don't want to move on. I want to kind of dig into this. Not, and this isn't too Neil, but this actually, I mean, if we're gonna acknowledge the type of people that are like Jin, then I would like to say, when I'm talking about flat Earth measurements, that sounds redundant, right? When I'm talking about measurements of the Earth, isn't that nice? When when I'm talking about measurements of the Earth, and someone comes in the room to say, "I just want to know, are you guys Christians?" And then all of a sudden, a flat earther's like, "Yeah," and then they're like, "Okay, so what's the firmament then?" Like, that's exactly what we don't want Jin doing when it comes to the conspiracy stuff. When, like, because you do get dragged into it.
I wouldn't.
Not you. A lot of flat earthers, they're just talking about flat Earth, and then they start defending Christianity or something.
Yep.
Right. I would say that.
Absolutely.
What does that have to do with flat Earth?
Exactly. That's the point. We're trying to detach it from flat Earth because we've got the winning firmest of ground we could ever be on when we talk about how Earth's measured. But for the discussion to exist with a contrasting view, we have to have Earth measurements positioned like they are a belief. They're not.
Right. And the other day, that's what I'm saying. I'm defending myself because the other day, Hawk tried to bring me into it by telling me to prove Jesus. I didn't bite. I said that's faith-based. That's when I brought it. He brought it up, and I answered him because we were talking about chemtrails and showing me freaking proof of chemtrails. He tried to drag in Jesus into it, and I didn't bite. Go listen back.
Yeah, because he's saying
I
my
remember.
incorrect
Oh,
standard.
'cause he's trying to apply. I get what you're saying, Nathan. Yes. Go ahead.
Say he can then contrast his unreasonable standard with your unreasonable standard as he perceives it to be. But if that's being done in a context of flat Earth measurements, then that's when the discussion can have a perception that it's required to take place. Like Eli just gave with the example of the firmament. It's suddenly, well, so you believe that there's a firmament because that's the flat Earth position, a belief in the firmament. And my belief in a sky vacuum can contrast that. Let's discuss and debate. Whereas if you go, why are we discussing this? This is a completely irrelevant standard. What's that? You believe in outer space. How's the height measured when you go into space? Oh, off a flat Earth. So there's no discussion to have then. You'll be discussing the altitude for your rocket ship in a fake place from a surface level then. So Earth's definitely flat. Can we just agree with that before we have this unrelated discussion about the sky?
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
When did anybody ever hear me declare a firmament other than joking around? Maybe never.
Yeah, I think we're picking on Neil a little bit on this one, and it might be.
No, I moved it away from you because it's a problem that shouldn't be just swept under the rug. If we're going to dig into the type of person and that Jen plays the role of, we have to dig into the type of person that's also coupling flat Earth with Christianity, straight up. Not Christian. Let me
Right, but
rewind.
that's not
No, that's fine. You don't have to
That's
correct
scripture.
yourself.
But that's not
Christianity,
Neil.
don't correct yourself. It is done with Christianity. It's been
No, because
used.
Christianity is like a whole nother. Never mind. Okay.
Well,
whatever.
what I'm going to say though
You're
is
just trying.
I'm trying to explain that it has been specifically done for us with Christianity to make flat Earth be palatable as a religious discussion from people who don't declare that they've got a religion in heliocentrism. It's been using or leveraging Christian faith to achieve that ends. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, we've contrasted 9/11 truth and conspiratorial, as we deemed it, truth, with the impression that conspiratardia is flat Earth also. Now, it may not be fun for Christians to hear me try and, in a polite and pleasant way, unpick the religious aspects of flat Earth from Christianity because they're in different category standards. You can show to any next man in line how flat Earth is with a measurement. And if it's capable for him to respond that you just hold a belief in those measurements because, and then insert unreasonable standard that is genuinely discussed and debated about by quote unquote flat earthers all day long, then it seems like there's a reasonable standpoint to have a discussion. And I'm saying there isn't. Everybody measures Earth flat, so we should all dispense with that at the beginning of the discussion. But if we're talking about 9/11 truth, we can talk about flat Earth truth. By contrast, when someone comes along and contrasts their globe belief with your flat Earth belief, which it isn't.
Absolutely. And I think most Christians would hold the same position because while in the Bible it does describe the earth as flat and stationary, we don't necessarily, the majority of us, Don't necessarily look to the Bible and say, this is how we know Earth is flat.
Yeah, good
I would
luck
hope.
trying to separate God from the conversation of flat Earth. Good luck with that.
It's a completely
So
different
you do
standard.
disagree. So you are, Jen. Because
The
good luck with separating
No,
the
because
truth
you created.
that the
We all know
government.
we're created. Just
Look
understand
at
what
the
I'm
truth
saying.
of the government lying. Good luck with decoupling that.
Yeah, good luck with separating chemtrails from flat Earth, Neil.
Good luck, because we know there's a creator. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
and we know
gonna
that they're persistent contrails. Good luck unpacking that from flat Earth.
Hey, if you're going to be atheist, then I'm freaking gone.
Nobody's saying we're atheists.
No,
That's
listen.
not what we're saying.
Listen.
Furthermore, I'm
Neil.
not saying. Just let me get to the end of this statement. I'm not saying it's unreasonable to discuss chemtrails. Far from it. We did, didn't we? We had a whole show about it. Why? So I can make this point now. It has nothing to do with Earth measurements. If we're going to discuss chemtrails and have it convolute and muddy the waters of flat Earth measurements, then we need to understand and appreciate that if we're going to have those discussions, they need to be separated, not interwoven. That's it. Now, I started this by saying it's jarring when you convolute two different standards, a religious standard and the empiricism I falsely ascribe to measurements at the beginning of this discussion. It doesn't matter which... Oh, my God. You just can't wait for your turn to talk.
Stopped. I'm sorry.
Neil, in the same way, it was jarring to hear measurements be called empirical.
No,
I mean,
I get it, because I can remember. I'm
understand?
starting to think back now. I did go to Job for measurements too. So I'm starting to think, and I have. But I'm not the only one who's brought scripture into flat Earth. I brought measurements because I see them in the scriptures, but I understand what you're saying, because that's a different standard. I got it.
Yeah, I don't think it meant to be a dog pile that quickly. But there is a concerted effort, it seems, for religion to be pushed into this topic, and separating it is as important as separating it from everything else.
Does say put a line across the earth, though.
Yes, but like he didn't give you like any unit values or anything like that. You know what I mean?
We do
said you can't.
We do have crisscross lines coming out of the back of the planes in the sky, Neil. They do happen. Are you denying those things? You find it funny, but I'm trying to make a contrast.
He doesn't give the measurements.
So when it's someone else's belief, you find it amusing. Very telling.
That's not a belief.
Yeah, it is. Their belief in chemtrails, Neil.
No. They could validate them. They gave me the soil samples, Nathan. Come on, where you been? You ain't gonna hear another word about it from me. Don't worry about it.
Nobody's suggesting that either. You're going to another extreme that's not necessary either. Nobody's saying...
it is necessary.
My God.
You're telling me it's necessary. What do you mean?
Because it's not justifiable to say I'm never going to have the discussion about Christ ever again. Why would I ever do such a thing? I'm not saying that is something I don't want to talk about either. I'm saying that when it's interwoven with a discussion about something that's factual, like measurements, it justifies the actual belief that's trying to superimpose itself on top of those measurements. That's heliocentrism. That seems palatable and justifiable to have a discussion about the belief in flat Earth measurements versus the belief in heliocentrism. Why? Well, we do it all the time. We're talking about Christianity right now. A completely different category.
That's because Neil slipped in a biblical reference.
This is your fault, young Craig.
I'm going to let that fly.
What? You're always slipping in little references. I'm sorry, but you do it.
I thought Surf Daddy does it way more than I do it. So
He does.
get on his ass.
Yeah, he does.
Well, I would tell him the same thing then when he does it. It's always the way to.
Right, we're
Yeah.
trying to weed out these attachments that have found themselves being justified when talking about flat Earth. It doesn't matter if it's religion, 9/11 truth, psychopathy, that's psychology. All of these things are unrelated, but we all have had them interweaved in the subject so that it's easier. It offers a mechanics to the person debating their belief that they didn't even know they had. And they project onto us this impression that we're expressing our belief in a flat Earth. So let's debate. No. There is no need for that debate to exist. And we're trying to unweave the tapestry of an impression that flat Earth is something other than the factual measurements of Earth's surface. That's what sticking to those facts means, unpicking how we have done things up until now. It almost felt when I got here 10 years ago like there was a necessity to create content about conspiracy if I was a flat earther. Nothing could be further from the truth, though. That was done so that it was reasonable for our opponents who project their belief and their religion of a ball onto us. When the reality is both parties discussing their belief in a flat Earth versus the discussion of a belief in a globe, both will use flat Earth measurements, won't they? That needs to be the focus moving forward. Detachment from everything else is what's necessary.
Yes, and the argument, right? If you can detach it from everything else, there will be no argument. And
There is
people
no
need to
argument.
see that.
Yeah, there's no argument for us, but they still want to believe there's an argument to keep their belief alive.
Well, not an argument. We've established it. Measurement is not an argument, it's a fact.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah.
if you're really clever, right, and you can get someone to refer to Job and how he's stretched a line across the earth, then you can compare that to wrapping a tape measure around a basketball and getting the circumference.
Are you getting it?
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
but it doesn't say that. Hold on. It doesn't say that.
That's not the point he's making. Ugh. He's saying you can then justify the juxtaposition with the basketball claim to be measurement when it's an expression of a belief in a ball, but by
okay,
contrast to your expression of belief in Job. All seems perfectly legit, right? We can have that discussion because you don't actually feel that way about Job. Well, now we're discussing it, aren't we? Like there's a discussion to have? No, there isn't. The line across Earth is just a measurement. No religion needs to be implied or justified so that our opponents can express their religious belief by contrast to yours. You don't have one in a flat Earth. There isn't one to have in a flat Earth. It's just how it's measured by everyone, always, without exception.
Okay, to be fair, they bring basketball up when you're just talking about measurements. Don't stick that to Job. I understand what you're saying, John.
Yes, but they do try to bring up the basketball and how you can measure the circumference of a sphere with a tape measure, right? But that's when you take them back to the initial measurement is linear,
The inch.
not an arc.
Correct. They bring them back to the inception of what measurements are. Never arcs, always straight. Linear.
For Earth measurement, yes. No, nobody's having trousers cut for them is the point when we talk about Earth measurement. So, you deny that you have your waist measured. Sorry, are we Taylor debate? No, we're measuring Earth.
But even when you are talking about tail, it's still a measurement, and it still goes back to its inception. It's not freaking arc.
Right, well, this has been an extremely productive show, I would say. We've unpacked something new
I would
the
too.
audience may not have appreciated. And it seemed like we were just picking on the conspiratards. But the standards expand outwards to everybody for all subjects that aren't related to Earth measurement, I'm afraid. Religion's going to be under the hammer at some point. It has been today.
Wait a second. You're going to tell me I'll show that twisted my balls is extremely productive?
Yes, very.
Great.
Yeah. As productive as twisted
Well done,
Gin's
Neil.
balls or anybody else's balls. You know, Harp's balls got twisted, and as much as you may not like it, for the exact same reasons, right? His subject's not related to the Earth measurements unless you deliberately incorporate the height of the plane that is alleged to be spraying aluminium, barium, and strontium. Then you've got a flat Earth measurement, so long as you can all agree upon that. But if you don't lay that fact down immediately, then you can have a justifiable person from the outside come along and say, well, you believe in the chemtrails. Let's discuss our belief in your flat Earth.
It's not a belief, you fucking retard. Try looking up.
Yes, it is, Hop.
Observe and declare. A very low standard. I can look up at the stars and say that they're spherical. I can say that we have orbital motion and just tell you
That's
to look at the
retarded.
stars. Can't I?
That's retarded.
How is it any different?
Show me a sphere in the sky, retard.
Can you stop calling me names or I'll just remove you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
Hop, you
you
gotta be
just
respectful
busted
a little
my
bit,
balls
Hop.
and triggered me. And you did it on purpose, so now I'm here.
No,
right?
you're not
So have you
Nathan. That's another
bothered
thing.
looking at
Hop, you're not
anything I
Nathan.
ever posted? No, you haven't. Well,
There's only
Neil's
one
a little
Nathan. Stop trying to be Nathan. Be
God-believing
yourself, Hop.
bitch. Man, God-believing little bitch is now talking over me. Did you look at anything I posted? No, you didn't. So you just keep exposing
think it-
yourself, you fucking asshole.
I'd just remove him, actually.
Hop, you have to give me evidence of the chemtrails, not just your videos. You got to give me evidence of the chemicals. That's all we're asking for. Not measurements in the soil, because that could be anything. You behind that plane? Did you take samples from what is
Prove
sprayed out of
your
the sky?
fucking man, God, retard.
Please stop swearing and calling people's names. We
That
can
has
have the
nothing to
discussion.
do-
You
Don't need to do
fucking
that.
chemtrails.
pissed me off. I had enough of you fucking idiots.
Please
So
stop
now
swearing.
I'm pissed.
Please,
All right?
please stop
So
swearing.
you want to tell me I have fucking low standards? I look up and there's chemtrails. No Jesus, just chemtrails.
All right, you look
No,
up.
those are clouds in the sky, Hop.
You're looking up and
They're
making a declaration
contrails.
about the content of the materials coming out the back of a jet airliner. That's just your assumption.
Right. Colloidal suspension can happen with several different types of matter. That could be condensation. I don't know why you're saying it's not.
Could be. We don't know that it is or isn't. Could be. I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, you might be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying the standard that you're holding is being contrapositively identified as our standard as flat earthers, when the standard of flat earth is entirely different to this standard that you may or may not be right about. Harp.
I mean, the plane will be flying straight and level flight, I guess.
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct. So as long as you can establish that in our discussion field, that's flat earth, then everything else becomes moot. That doesn't mean I don't want to have a discussion about chemtrails. We can have a discussion about anything you like. But it's being interwoven with the subject of flat earth so that we can be mocked and ridiculed and have false standards of evidence placed on flat earth. Flat earth is just a measurement of earth. In terms of how it's dealt with, it is flat. Everything I've just said is redundant. We just measure earth. How it's measured won't have ever altered regardless of us having this discussion. Therefore, you need to introduce a new standard to it, where it can be contrasted with someone's belief in something. Therefore, when someone expresses their belief in heliocentrism, it seems reasonable as they project what they suggest is a measurement of a heliocentric world. Well, I've measured the moon's moving around that light in the sky there. Therefore, I've measured orbital motion. That could be my standard that I apply as a bull believer who's not recognising the acquisition of flat Earth prerequisite elevations to the lights in the sky to describe them in the first instance. I'm just expressing my religious belief with a seeming standard of measurement. Why? Well, because you need to contrast that with the fact Earth is measured flat. It's required in orbital motion and called the belief in flat Earth for what it is when you contrast it with your own seemingly reasonable measurement of an actual belief in heliocentrism. That's the game. That's the game we're in. The only way we'll separate ourselves from the game is say, I'm not playing that game. No, we've just got Earth measured flat. I'm not going to play any games where you contrast your belief in a spherical surface in violation of the measurements. Because you say, I believe in God or chemtrails or 9/11.
Exactly, Nathan. They're going to constantly try to pull us into the conspiracy realm with our own.
Or the historic.
Well, not just the conspiracy realm. They're trying to pull us out of the standard of measurement.
Precisely.
Well put.
That is.
Well put.
Those chemtrails, so-called chemtrails, they are straight lines in the sky. For those that claim that airplanes don't fly at level flight, they're straight lines in the sky.
It's not true.
And by the way, the
Hold on, let me
British
just correct you,
government-
George. That's not true. So what you actually get, if you look at a chemtrail, let's just call it that terminology for ease of use. The stuff that comes out of a jet, if it's spraying, and I use the word just to keep everybody calm, right, from the horizon, and then they traverse your view, it will go in an arc that is representative of the arc of the protractor we describe the Earth acquisition with. That is to say, to create a sphere Earth, you take flat Earth angle measurements of the flat sky. Now, when George describes a straight line, in reality, the actual path of the plane is straight and level. It's in level flight. But if you were to measure its angle from your first acquiring it at the horizon at what we will call 0, assuming you can see to sea level, and to your 90 degree, that's zenith above your head, and then back to 180 at the opposite horizon, it has appeared to take a curved path through the acquisition of angle measurements you could describe it with. The very same angle measurement acquisition that can be utilised to create a ball to believe in. But it's the apparent motion I would describe as curving that has created an apparent curve of the ground beneath our feet that is measured in actuality flat.
Damn, Nathan, that's pretty good. I saw that whole thing in my head as you were describing it. That's correct.
Just to support the hard argument, the British government approved £5 billion to dim the sky. So they want to cover the sunlight, basically.
You know, it's
No,
very
that's
jarring
insane.
when we talk about flat Earth measurements and you express your belief in what the sky's doing in terms of how it's being painted. You see, Neil, everybody gets the same treatment. How dare you,
Yeah.
George?
How can you back that up? What the heck was that all about?
No,
Very
I'm just
jarring.
saying what has been approved by the government.
My God.
No,
Totally
it's-
different
I see
standard.
what he's saying. Harp's saying it's been approved. Yeah, that's what Cuddle says too. He has documents from the government of they're admitting to seeding the skies or whatever you want to call it,
Oh my
blocking the
God.
sun.
How is this
It doesn't change the measurement of the flat Earth, though, does it?
Exactly.
No, don't change the measurement that Nathan just described either.
Right, but it's being convoluted with it now by George. Instead of a religious standard convoluting this measurement fact, the jarring person isn't Neil anymore, it's George, isn't it?
Right, we're being taken from the standard of measurement. Now we're being moved into documentation. Right.
Precisely.
Government.
So
Precisely.
Politics.
politics and documentation, the paper trail. Sorry, how does this have any bearing on how we measure Earth? It doesn't. But now the standards have been convoluted again. We're opening up cracks that are ultimately exploited by our opponents, who want to express and project their belief in a religion called heliocentrism onto us. Like our standards need to be applied with their standards. And they're different standards. We have measurements of Earth to back our, not belief, our total knowledge in that fact. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Pro Ring streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hit me up on PayPal and Patreon and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If Earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken, we just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.